And this brings us to a central concern of Yeats. In contrast to Wordsworth, whose poems often dwell in the fear of losing inspiration, Yeats seemed to fear the inspiration itself. Nowhere is this more apparent than in his sonnet, Leda and the Swan. A sudden blow, the great wings beating still above the staggering girl, her thighs caressed by the dark webs, her nape caught in his bill. He holds her helpless breast upon his breast. How can those terrified, vague fingers push the feathered glory from her loosening thighs? And how can body laid in that white rush but feel the strange heart beating where it lies? A shudder in the loins engenders there the broken wall, the burning roof and tower, and Agamemnon dead. Being so caught up, so mastered by the brute blood of the air, did she put on his knowledge with his power before the indifferent beak could let her drop. What more frightening image of inspiration could he have chosen than being raped by a god? But I would argue that his greatest fear in this poem is the indifference, which is echoed in the previous poem by the dimness of the sea and the wandering of the stars. Some vast, overwhelming force is close enough to touch, but is indifferent to us. It might make us a great poet. It might destroy us. It might do both, or neither. It might show us how meaningless our normal life is. And if at this point you are reminded of his great lifelong unrequited love, Maud Gunn, and how she might have made the poet feel, I couldn't blame you. The unanswerable question is, which comes first, the theme or the autobiography? Yeats triumphantly transformed his autobiography into poetry of cosmic scope. He left his life behind. Leda and the Swan was written about 32 years after Who Goes with Fergus. In that time, Yeats seems to have moved from Ireland to Greece. Of course, it's not as simple as that, but he did expand his horizons beyond Ireland. He now had his eyes on a larger European tradition, and beyond that, he was creating his own mythology, with himself, the author, as a character in that mythology. And this is where his wife comes into the picture, George Hyde Lees. She was the daughter of an old friend of Yeats, part of a circle that indulged in mysticism and seances. Her seances with Yeats continued long after their marriage in 1917. Well, I should say long after their wedding, sorry. And it was her channeling that thickly populates his notorious book of Vision, where we get some of the background of his personal and poetic mythology. George's influence cannot easily be overstated. In Sailing to Byzantium, written around 1927, and also in this book with Leda and the Swan, we see the poet as hero leaving his homeland of Ireland for another world. That is no country for old men, the young in one another's arms, birds in the trees, those dying generations at their song. The salmon falls, the mackerel-crowded seas, fish, flesh, or fowl, commend all summer long whatever is begotten, born, and dies. Caught in that sensual music, all neglect monuments of unaging intellect. An aged man is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick, unless soul clap its hands and sing, and louder sing, for every tatter in its mortal dress. nor is there singing school, but studying monuments of its own magnificence. And therefore I have sailed the seas and come to the holy city of Byzantium. O sages standing in God's holy fire, as in the gold mosaic of a wall, come from the holy fire, burn in a gyre, and be the singing masters of my soul. Consume my heart away, sick with desire and fastened to a dying animal, it knows not what it is, and gather me into the artifice of eternity. Once out of nature, I shall never take my bodily form from any natural thing, but such a form as Grecian goldsmiths make, of hammered gold and gold enameling, to keep a drowsy emperor awake, or set upon a golden bough to sing to lords and ladies of Byzantium, of what is past, or passing, or to come.
Jesus, brilliant.
I didn't write it. As I said, here Yeats is a character in his own mythology, which spans from Ireland all the way across Europe to Byzantium, which of course suggests an even larger tradition, including the East. Yeats was very interested in Indian swamis, even hosting them now and then, not to mention the influence of his secretary, Ezra Pound, who was obsessing over the elegance of Chinese poetry, which would lead Pound to imagism. Yeats could never be accused of being an imagist, but it did influence his practice of symbolism, which is also about strong images holding a lot of weight. In the last stanza of Sailing to Byzantium, we see once again that sad, strange desire to leave this world behind, this time by becoming a mechanical bird. The irony is here again. Do we really want to become a mechanical bird? No and yes. With all my talk of tradition and myth, one might wonder if Yeats is too impersonal a poet. But Yeats did not need autobiography to be personal. After all, what is more heartbreakingly personal and vulnerable than to call himself a tattered coat upon a stick?